that button there. All right. Hope to be recording it, and you know, theoretically, I can upload it to YouTube. We'll see how that happens, if that works. When we get started, I'm going to mute everybody, and I'm going to have, except for Kevin, of course, and put him on. And there's a chat function on there. So if you look down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little chat thing, and you can click on that, and you can send me a question, and then I will then relay that on to Kevin. So that's how we're going to use that. Little bit, just wanted to mention about the Q list. I don't know if you guys know, but we have over 950 members on that email list that we have. And I think we're a little bit underutilized. There's also a Facebook group for the Q200 that Richard has going, which is, you know, nice to have. But I think we're a little bit underutilized, and I'd urge you to go ahead and take a look at the QList website itself, and that is q-list.groups.io. And in there we have a lot of nice photographs. I encourage you to create a page of your own in there and upload your photographs. And we also have a file section in there. I'm looking at it right now. There's interesting things. Mike Bergen has some talks in there. I may go through and delete some of this older stuff. We have things about the Corvair engines, and there's a lot of stuff there. Anyway, so we have a lot of resources about that. So now I'm going to hit the mute all button. And so everybody should be turned off now. And I'm going to unmute Kevin. And so Kevin's unmuted. And I'm going to introduce Kevin Bodicker from Decorah, Iowa. He's got a beautiful Q2 Tri-Q, and he has been hosting the spring fling for several years now. And,
the spring rain out.
Yeah, spring rain out. Paul Fisher's in charge of the weather. It hasn't been doing so hot, but
you can't trust him.
I'm going to turn this over to Kevin, and we're going to see what this is like here. So take it away.
All right, thanks, Sam. Sam gets all the credit for putting this thing together. He called me last week or early midweek, I don't remember, and so asked my opinion. I thought it'd be a good deal, so we did a trial run with Jerry and Paul and Sam and I, and it worked well. So this is only the second, or I guess Sam and I messed with it last weekend. This is the third time for some of us, and it seems to be working fine. About myself, I bought a kit partially built in 1999 in August. It was on wheels. Thought, well, all I really have to do is just wire it and mount the engine, and we're ready to fly. As always, that was wrong, but nonetheless, I had a lot of things I had to rework. Didn't work on it for the first year I owned it, just because I had other commitments. So I finally got to working on it. Got Fisher and Crouch to come up and look at it on several occasions, and on one of the occasions, we determined that the main wing had been compromised by the previous builder. Drilled a hole through the spar caps, so the main wing had to be replaced. That was one of the obstacles in the project as it went by. I've got a couple of photos here that I'll try to zoom in on what took place. There's one of them with, we didn't really use a chainsaw, used a hand saw, but it took about 35 seconds to cut through that. That's what it looks like. If you ever question what it looks like when you cut your wing out, then you got to clean it all up. So anyway, that was one of the trials we had to try to get the airplane finished. So we got the new wing mounted, and flew it the first time in March of 2006 was the first flight. And right now I've got I just turned over 510 hours of flying time. As always, you know, you have things that maybe go wrong. Had a bad landing in 2016 and put a big hole in the bottom of the canard.
It's a good thing nobody saw that happen.
Yeah, it was during the spring fling when the weather was good, and all of my so-called friends were standing along the runway watching. So it was less than a stellar show. So I'll get flipped around here again. This is the bottom of the canard that was on the wing like such. Hit a runway light as I laid a little excursion off of the runway. So I would suggest you not do that. And as we got everything ready, these were the templates we used for redoing the, putting the skins back on the wings. So you have to get the orientation correct and line them up. So we made the templates, got the cloth cut. Mr. Fisher came up and helped me. So that little boo-boo right there turned out to be that big by the time you blend back the different layers of the cloth. So I would make a suggestion you don't do that. Couple of other things that are maybe peculiar to this airplane. I realize that every one of them is hand-built, but as I was putting the cowling together and getting the engine mounted and so on, I decided to put the heat box that came with the original engine off a 150, and everybody told me, you can't do that. Man, I like a challenge. So there's the original carb heat box, and then I made that snout there to come up to the hole in the front of the cowling. And I had to change the cowling a little bit. I had to cut the back so it was lower and add some on and so forth, and then cut the front so that it wouldn't rub on the back of the spinner. But in doing so, I was able to put that carb heat box in and stay away from the one that came with the kit. I know they've worked for everybody for years. I just like doing it this way. Last year, about this time, I had some problems with compression, maybe partially stuck valve. So I put 4 new Millennium cylinders on. Don't know exactly how many hours I got them, maybe 30, something like that. 30, 35 hours. So that's one thing that is different, meaning the air cleaner or the air filter and the carb heat box, different from the plans. A couple other things I'll show you.
Hey, Kevin.
Yes.
I got a question here. Mike Dwyer asked, how did you glass, going back to your accident you had out there, how did you glass the bottom? He wanted to know if you flipped the plane over.
Mike, no, I did not flip the plane over. We talked about that the day of the accident because we had all kinds of incident, maybe. We had all kinds of people here and hands to do it. And we were very serious about it until we realized that we'd have to take all the fluid out of the brakes and the master cylinders off. And I wasn't willing, and nobody else was willing to crawl down in the hellhole to get all that done. So I laid on my back on a creeper all summer long. It was not fun. Dust falling in your face. Then I had to figure out how, after I added the foam back in, I was going to sand that foam to get it to remove enough that I could, hang on a second here. Remove enough that I could get the foam sanded thin or sanded down below the rest of the surface, just enough so that when I put the micro in there and I put the cloth back on, it was all level again or flush again. So I developed this gizmo, which doesn't look like much, but it's a sanding block. This is Teflon or white slick tape. This is white slick tape. This just houses the center. That allowed me to move that up and down. So actually this piece is just a tiny bit higher than this piece. So if you rub this on the bottom of the wing, this would rub on the foam, and it would remove just enough foam so that when we put all the layers back on, it made a nice smooth finished layup. I hope that answers your question, Mike. Obviously, I can't hear you.
Yeah, it's
So the next thing that I did on my project, and it comes from our friend Lynn French. I don't know if he's logged in today or not. Lynn's got a lot of good ideas, and so I stole them like any other good airplane builder. So this is my control stick. It's not working out very well. This is my control stick. And in order to clear the fuel tank down in there, when the stick is pulled all the way back or all the way forward, either one, is that working, Sam, or not?
yeah. Hey, before you get into the detail, could you give us like an overview of your cockpit here so we can kind of get the lay of the land?
Oh, sure, yeah. So, okay, I'll zoom back here a little bit. I've got Hoskins by interior by Hoskins in here. In other words, just nothing but a piece of foam and an old piece of curtain, I think it is. Not much for looks, but it seems to work. Oh, I think that's only 1 7/8 inches on an experimental. I better call the feds. Did engine turning on the panel, and then I had it powder coated transparent blue. It just a thought I had one day, and it seemed to work out. Anyway, getting back to the stick, what Lynn did is he turned his stick upside down. So this end should be where the pivot is down below, and the pivot should be up here, and this should be down here somewhere. By turning the stick over and doing a little remanufacturing on the lower end, it raised the attach point here high enough that it would clear the fuel tank down there, and I didn't have to cut out and make trough in the fuel tank for the attach rods, the elevator attach rods to hook up. I don't know if that's visible very good or not, Sam.
Yeah, I wonder how that affected your range of motion on your control stick there compared to the plans. But
I have full motion back to back according to the motion templates, you know, for the elevator travel. I've got full range of motion. I had to fuss with it, but what I've noticed is my stick is, because of the way it's hooked up, it's less sensitive than the plans in pitch, because I have to move the stick farther in order to get the same amount of elevator deflection than what you would.
okay.
And I think Lynn's is, if he's on there, he would probably agree with that on his as well. But again, that was his idea. And the other thing that he came up with, you can see it up in here. That white thing is a fuel filter. Let me get the weight out of the way here. That white thing is a fuel filter. So the fuel flows in the right-hand side and comes out the left-hand side, and you can see the AN fitting, and it goes down to the firewall. So not only is it a fuel filter, but I guess in my mind, it's a water filter as well. There's no gasculator on the firewall, and any water that would come in that system would go down through the center, sit in the bottom of that bowl, and it would have to travel all the way back up and out to get into the carb itself. Knock wood, I've never had any water in it. I change it probably every other year, and I've been very fortunate, and it's worked very well. What Lynn provided was the piece of aluminum that it mounts to, so it's just a spin-on filter. And I think Lynn did drew up the plans, and then he had a machinist make it. So I don't think he's in that business, but he got one for me.
Is that an automotive filter of some sort?
Yeah, it's a Napa 3390 or something like that, Sam. What else did I do? Oh, in the tail cone, some of that Jim Bob 6-pack talks about a center pivot in the bottom of the tail cone. I did not put one in there. Personally, it was in there when I got the kit, but I do like it because it takes a lot of the pressure from the brake system off of this tiny little phenolic bearing back here when you start mashing on the brakes. At least that's what I'm told. So I don't know if that pressure follows through or if it actually is absorbed in that bell crank that's mounted to the bottom of the floor. I thought I had a picture of it, but I couldn't find one. And I can't get back in there with my phone well enough to let you see what's going on, I don't believe. So.
Hey, Kevin, what are your performance numbers?
Oh, very poor. It's a Tri-Q, don't you know? I cruise at about 140 at 2450 RPM. The other engine before I changed the cylinders, it seemed to want to run at 2400. This one seems to want to run at 2450. Just
knots or miles an hour?
What's that? Oh, in miles an hour, 140 miles an hour. I wish it was knots, but it's not. About 125 knots. Okay. And you get no wind conditions, and you check the GPS against it, and it's dead on. You know, the airspeed indicator is dead on with the GPS when you get the rare occasion that there's no winds upstairs. So 140, probably 5 to 5.5 gallons an hour in cruise. It's always kind of been right there. I lift off. I don't even think about lifting off till I hit 80 miles an hour. And sometimes it's 85. Climb at 100. With new cylinders on here, we've got a lot more power. Climbing at 100 seems like maybe you're going to flip over backwards. So I've been climbing about 110, 115, still get 1,000 feet a minute. Yeah. And one of the things I guess I noticed as far as performance is I flew it for probably 2 years or so without any wheel pants on it. And then Ernest Martin developed the wheel pants, the cores, and made the wheel pants themselves. And I bought a set from him. I made the nose gear fairing. I actually had a second nose gear laying there so I could glue foam onto that and use that as a template to later on bring that fairing onto this nose gear, which was quite nice. But I built that fairing. What I was driving at is performance. I picked up about 10 miles an hour in cruise with the wheel pants. And what really surprised me was about 300 to 400 feet a minute in climb difference. If I take that wheel pant and that fairing off of there, I'll lose an easy 300 to 400 feet a minute in climb, which was quite surprising to me.
Well, I always keep my wheel pants on as well. I don't take them off.
You don't?
Nope.
Imagine that. There's been some talk about on the list recently about the Sparrow strainers. Mine are per plans. I did not install them myself. When I got the kit, the elevators were built and the Sparrow strainers were attached. I did some checking, some finish work and so on, but I'm about as fortunate as they come because they're plans and I can let go of the stick and it will just oscillate out just like a 150 in smooth air, and it will seek its own level and stay right there, you know, again, unless you hit a thermal or something that disrupts that that balance. But that's pretty nice. What else did I do that's odd, Sam?
I got a
Or
question
different?
here from Bruce. What's the round thing on the port side behind the engine?
The round thing on the port side behind the engine. Oh, this thing here?
Must be.
That's a that's an air filter or an air transfer. It's an oil cooler. There's an oil filter in there behind there. It's got an El Reno adapter, and Piper Tomahawk had 2 of those when they first came out because they couldn't keep the engine cool, and they made 2 so they could keep the. They had 1 on each side. They didn't have 2 oil filters, but they had 2 boxes like that so they could keep the airflow the same. That's not really true. They used this one, I guess, and it was plumbed over to the other side, and this one was plumbed to this side of the baffling, and that way it kept the pressure in the baffle or in the chamber equalized, I guess. I came off the baffle originally, as you can see here, it was all puttied back together, and I just had a hose come from here and go right down to here. However, it made this cylinder too hot. So I switched it around and ran this up and over, and it picks up the air for the oil cooler right there on the front of the engine. This one is for my cabin heat.
So what are you seeing for air oil temps?
I got to really push it hard to get it over 200, Sam. If it's a hot day, like, say 90 plus, it'll get up to 210, 215. I don't know if I've ever seen it much over 215. In the wintertime, I can't get it warm. It's 175, 150 to 175 is as warm as I can get it. Here comes that rain they talked about.
Okay. Kevin, I just got a note here from Zoom. We got about a little more than 8 minutes to go.
Okay.
Does anybody have any more questions you want to get in here?
Yeah, that'd be great. Because I'm running out of things to say.
I don't believe that. Come on.
Oh, here. There's our friend Charlie Johnson. Going to get loud, I guess. Our friend Charlie Johnson made those NACA ducts. Obviously, I had to put them in, but he did the glass work and made those. I got one on the other side, obviously. But they are crazy efficient. Man, that rain is coming down crazy. It's loud.
Well,
can you hear that, Sam?
Nope.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Other than that, it's about as stock as it can, about as per plans as it can be, I think.
Do you have any idea how many people you've given rides to?
Well, Jay Scable was the last one. that was the day we had the mishap.
Okay.
But I think maybe 15, something like that. Not a lot. Not a lot. Something else, I just had a thought. Oh, this is just showing off. I did engine turning on the spinner as well. And so I had it done in transparent red for those that haven't seen it. Again, just stuff to show off is all.
Yeah, that's
doesn't add anything other than looks.
That's very sexy. And who made your prop and what's the pitch on it?
It's a Props Inc. that Jeff Buchheit, I think is his last name. It's a 58-inch 71 pitch.
68 or 58?
5.8 71.
Oh, huh. 71, okay.
few years ago, I had problems. This is now my carb heat muff. When I originally had it done, I had another outlet on here that went back to the carb heat box here, and I was using it for dual. This inlet went up to here, so I had fresh air coming into the carb heat box, and then fresh air would come through to come into the cabin heat. But what would happen as I opened up the carb heat, the air would come from here, back here, across there, and down to the carb, and it wouldn't come through here, up through, and heat it up sufficiently. So I had this heat box rebuilt. Then I had a separate cabin heat box built for this side. So that alleviated that dual box and the unknown as far as carb heat temp. Okay, question, Sam?
No.
Well, they're not very attentive, are they?
Let's see. I got a question. How did you configure your exhaust? Is it 2-into-1?
No, it's singles.
And where did you get your exhaust?
Larry Couch.
Really?
He was changing for some reason. And he had a bunch of augmented crap hanging off the back of here, ran halfway down the fuselage.
Uh-huh.
And he was changing. Oh, I know why. He was changing to a Corvair engine before he passed away.
Yeah.
And he had the exhaust, and I said, hey, I'd buy that from you. So I did. And then I actually duct taped it together here and here, all the little joints. And then I had a fella come and weld up the way I had it mocked up. I had all the pieces fit and cut and all the joints made. And then, like I said, I had tape on it so he could tack it and lift the tape and tack it. And then he welded it actually hanging on an engine stand. So it's dual exhaust.
Yeah, I always use duct tape on my exhaust too.
And this little gizmo here is when I put the new cylinders on, the little screw for the cowling was banging there. So I took a hammer and I banged that in, but I couldn't tell if every time when I took the cowling off, I couldn't tell if it was still chafing or not. So I put a bunch of silicone in there, high temp silicone, just to see if I had the clearance. And I've accomplished that now. Otherwise that would be all rubbed out of there if I was still having the screw head or the screw chafe on the valve cover. This I built out of a piece of push-pull tube from RV10, the elevator control in RV10. It's my air oil separator. And the pipe goes down to the bottom, and then this pipe comes up to the top, and then there's another little pipe coming out the bottom over here. That's not very good. Right here, that lets the oil flow back down in the crankcase. And it's worked really, really well for about, well, whatever it costs to get it welded, 20, 30 bucks, something like that, and a little bit of time to build it. Did I see a question pop up there, Sam?
Let's see. Do you have EGTs on all of your cylinders?
What's that?
Do you have EGT on all your cylinders?
No, I only have an EGT on this cylinder, which is the right rear.
All right.
And cylinder head temp, I only have one, and it's the left rear, right up in there. It's the type that goes around the plug. When I upgrade, I'll probably use this one for the probe to go in, but I haven't done that
I
yet.
highly recommend instrumenting all your cylinders, because that way then you know what they're really doing. But
yeah, not on these cylinders I have, but I still have a West Tech gauge that came with the kit. And when I was flying originally, first 100 hours, I would put that on different cylinders at different times. And then it always seemed to match this one. So I just got fat, dumb, and happy with it, I guess, best way to say.
All right, we got a minute and a half left here.
Okay.
We got a thanks for the meeting from Germany. That was nice. Bruce has a question about the cowling and the exits, but I did want to mention, I'm going to send out an email. It's kind of a follow-up. It's feedback and suggestions for the next one. I'm interested in knowing how often you think you might want to do this. I'm interested in knowing if
There's a cowling, Bruce.
Interested in knowing what best time of day is, or the best day, anything like that. Any suggestions you guys have to put in there. So, Kevin,
Yes.
go ahead and sign off, buddy, because thanks very much, and it's been great.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I've enjoyed it. I would suggest to anybody to give it a try, and you know, it's not that big of a deal. Just do a walk around, you know, show off a little bit your airplane. You put a lot of work into it. Be proud of it, and join the deal.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for, we had, just for the record, we have 24 people on board here today.
Very good.
Sayonara.
How's that?
Beautiful. Beautiful.
We'll see you guys.